Greetings, good people. My name is Jimmy Warren, and you are watching ArkanTalk, powered by the Arkansas Times. Today, we have special guests with us, Miss Kendra Pruitt. Kendra, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jimmy. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. To everybody out there who doesn't know you, and that's not going to be that many people, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Kendra Pruitt. I am from the big metropolis of Newport, Arkansas. Went to school at Ouachita Baptist University, and from there went to law school at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. From there moved to Little Rock, and I've been in Little Rock about 7 years now. Started off at the Mitchell Williams Law Firm, practiced law for about 5.5 years, and then joined Mayor Scott as his senior advisor.
Awesome. So that's a big transition, and I know you. So I know you left a little bit out. So let's go back to those early Newport days. Kind of what was your upbringing like? What were your hobbies and things there?
Sure. I grew up the middle child. I have an older sister and a younger brother. So typical middle child syndrome, feeling left out, feeling out of the loop a lot of times, but grew up there as a tomboy actually. My brother and I are about 2 years apart, so I wanted to compete with him in all sports and everything that he did. So I grew up in Newport, tomboy, girl, whatever you want to call it. Played a lot of sports, very introverted, read a lot of books, things of that sort, really into school. That was my upbringing.
And so much so involved with sports that you had a basketball scholarship?
So yes, I went to Ouachita Baptist playing basketball and had an academic scholarship as well.
Awesome.
Don't leave me out on the academics.
I'm sorry. Academics definitely matter. So at what point did you know that you wanted to go to law school?
That's a great question. So I was actually in the 11th grade when I decided I wanted to go to law school. All my years before that, I always expected to go into the medical field. My mom was a science teacher. So she taught all the sciences, and I was just really intrigued by medicine and the study of medicine. So I thought I'd be a cardiologist. Then I thought, well, maybe a pediatrician. And so I kind of went through all of the types of doctors. And when I got to high school, I was the typical rebellious high schooler that was thinking, I'm ready to be done with school. Mm-hmm. So I was like, maybe pharmacy school instead. That's still within the sciences. It's still within medicine, but it's not as much school. But I was in the 11th grade, and a teacher spoke into my life. She told me one day that, have you ever considered law school? We had a debate in history class. And Darby Wallace, she might catch this video. We're friends on social media. But she asked me, have you ever considered law school? I think you'd be great at it. So that really changed the trajectory of my life, to really consider a different path. And from there, I decided law was for me, and that was my path from there forward.
Awesome. And I know your mother is also an educator, so I can tell that education has been a big part of just your life and career. What is it like having opportunities like that coming from those small rural areas? How do we make sure that young people who don't have access to technology and things like that are able to seek opportunities like that?
It's super important. Education is the key to the success of our students. It literally matters so much. And so particularly when you're in rural areas, you grew up in rural areas like I did, Newport, not a very big place, the influencers are the educators. Those are the people in the community that students can look up to and really see themselves. And so I was blessed enough to have parents who were big on education. My mom is my shero, and she's very big on education. She's the biggest nerd that I know, even to this day. So I'm grateful to have her in my life, and folks like some of the best teachers that I believe hail from this state and maybe even this country. I had a group of awesome teachers that really poured into me, challenged me to be the best that I could be, and make sure that I succeeded and I excelled. So I can't speak any higher about educators, particularly for rural communities. That's the difference maker.
Awesome. So law school at U of A, what was that whole experience like?
Law school is miserable. I tell everybody who asks, it's not a fun time, but it's so life-changing. It's worthwhile, and I speak to many people, and you've had this conversation with me before about people should only go to law school if they really feel like it's a calling. Absolutely. It's a passion, because it's not the most fun that you'll ever have. And maybe some people have a different experience, but generally speaking, it's a very grueling time. You spend a lot of time studying, and being hazed, as I call it, during that period of time. But I really appreciate that time because it was absolutely what I feel like I was called to do. And it's a passion of mine, but it changes the way you think. That's the point of it. I think more so than the school lessons and the cases that you learn, it's teaching you how to think. And it has really changed my mindset about thinking and how I think, how I analyze things, and it has really set me up for success, not only in the practice of law, but in politics and strategy and policy that I do now.
Absolutely. And one big thing that we've noticed over the past, I'd say 5 to 7 years, is an increase of minorities that have been going to law school. And a lot of times they don't understand, because I am an alum of Bowen, I did attend Bowen Law School. A lot of times people don't understand what they're going to. So I asked, what information or what advice would you give for that young person, the young Kendra Pruitt that's back in Newport, that wants to go to law school?
I think it's imperative that lawyers and law schools plug into those kids, first and foremost. I don't think we should wait until folks are in college before we're reaching out and trying to recruit to the practice of law. I think we need to represent the practice of law to middle schoolers and high schoolers so they can see what that looks like. It's not just the courtroom lawyer that they might see on TV. It's not just the judge, but there are a breadth of careers within the practice of law. So I think that's first and foremost, to get involved and get in front of those students. Secondly, I think it's important for not only the law school and the law students, but for the educators that are there to expose their students to this.
Absolutely.
I think career preparation is not important enough in our schools. We're not preparing for careers. We're teaching to a curriculum that government tells us to teach to.
Absolutely.
And I think we have it backwards. We need to really seek out the passions and interests in our students and then expose them to opportunities to be successful in that. So I think it's kind of a twofold approach. Our schools, the educators, the principals, the superintendents, they need to have a role in exposing their kids to, I'm sorry, not their kids. They need to have a role in exposing their students into these different careers, and as well as the school and lawyers reaching out.
Yeah. So from there, straight to Mitchell Williams.
Yes.
So you went to Mitchell Williams, and a lot of people may wonder how Mitchell Williams, being in the private sector, actually led into going into politics. But your time there, you were actually a lobbyist, correct?
Yes. My last 2 years at the law firm, I was able to practice law and be a registered lobbyist in our state. So we have, I still say we, but at Mitchell Williams, they have a practice group that is government relations. It covers government relations. And so I, by the grace of God, literally went from litigation to this practice group where I did government relations with no intentions to go into politics, but just the path of my life led me that way. So that's what I was able to do.
And here we are now in the mayor's office. So what is that experience like?
Busy.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, life in city government is busy. As I mentioned before, I've never had an interest in city government.
Right.
I thought if I'd ever be involved in government whatsoever, it'd be on the federal level, maybe the state level, but never had a real interest in local politics, local government. But it's very, very rewarding. It's fulfilling, because the things that affect you and I on a day-to-day basis, it starts with local government.
Absolutely.
So we are able to touch people more readily than other forms of government can. So it's very, very busy, but I like to use the caveat rewarding and fulfilling, because it definitely is.
Yeah. So we're in the first week of March. March is Women History Month, and with the phenomenal and historic movement that's there in Mayor Scott's office, do you ever take time to reflect or even think like, wow, I'm Kendra Pruitt, I'm making history?
You know, I don't necessarily take the time to do it, but occasionally I'm able to do that type of reflection, or particularly when others say it to me. It's really mind-boggling to think that, you know, I have an opportunity to really impact 200,000 people on a day-to-day basis. And when I decided to take the job, again, never having an interest in it, never working to accomplish this role in my life, but I look at it from that I went from having about 40 clients at any given time at the firm, which is a pretty robust book of business, to having 200,000 clients.
Yeah.
I look at every resident of the city of Little Rock as a client of mine, as a client, a customer, whatever you want to call it, but I advocate for them on a day-to-day basis with the policies that we drive, the efforts we're trying to accomplish, and the initiatives that we put forward.
Yeah, y'all definitely do great work. And everybody, not just Little Rock, me being from Conway, I always look and admire the great things that y'all are doing in the office. But now the easy question.
Okay.
What are hobbies for Kendra Pruitt?
Hobbies. I love to travel whenever I get an opportunity to do so, which is not often, but I love to travel. I have 4 nephews and a niece now, so anytime I get to spend with them and my greater family, I love to do that as well. And I'm a foodie.
Okay.
I like to tell people that I love to eat.
Okay.
Which I need to be mindful of. I need to stop eating so much, but I love to eat. So those would be maybe my top 3. Working out, that's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah.
But I like to consider it a hobby.
Okay. What is, if you had to name one book that changed your life or changed your mindset, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd maybe say Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Absolutely.
And it seems a little cliche, but as I was reading her book, it was kind of a transformational and transition period for me in my life. So the way it lined up with what I was dealing with and what I was deciding for my personal career and how we're constantly becoming who we're supposed to be. And I really feel like this transition into this new position was me becoming who I'm supposed to be and walking in what God has for me.
Absolutely. So last question, this is one that we always leave with people. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you want the Kendra Pruitt legacy to be?
Oh man, these questions are like philosophical and deep.
Thought-provoking.
They are. 10 years, 20 years from now, I want people to look at my legacy and say that she made a difference, a positive difference, and a positive impact on the lives of a multitude of people. I really want people to look at me as being a difference maker. Someone who sought out solutions for the betterment of our community, of our city, and whomever I get to impact on a grand scale. Because again, being a lawyer is great and I loved it and I will always be a lawyer, but you're making an impact on an individual, one particular client at a time. But when you can change policies or create policies that impact people on a large scale, the entire city, the entire state, the entire country, whatever level you're on, that really has huge change and transformational change. So I hope that will be my legacy.
I mean, I think the legacy's already there. Not only have you made an impact in my life, but every day you're making an impact here in Little Rock. So
I'm trying.
We greatly appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Kendra Pruitt. You can check her social media handles and information at below at the blog, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.